Joseph,
And I'm Nick.
and this is Fish Jelly.
Hmm.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay. Uh, the Razzie Awards were announced yesterday.
Oh, I hadn't looked. I I think I like the idea of the Razzies, but sometimes they just seem
Mean.
well, I don't know. Sometimes they're fucking wrong too. I mean, The Shining. Come on now.
Oh, I didn't know about that. But for people who don't know, the Golden Raspberry Awards celebrate the worst of the film industry. And yesterday, the 44th Golden Raspberry Awards were announced. Uh, uh, I saw that the people presenting that, or like, I mean, I have a list of winners, but I went onto the website and it looks like the mean gays are the ones who announced the winners.
Oh,
And we get a lot of messages from people saying we remind them of the mean gays.
I think I've only seen a couple clips. I think only our shared sexuality is what's similar in my mind, but
Yeah, I mean, you can just go on TikTok and look up mean gays. They're pretty popular, and there are two guys. One is a bald white guy, and the other one, he's not white because they have a skit where he says he's not white.
mm-hmm.
Because then they have another skit with this person asking him about being black, and he's like, "Well, I'm not black either." But I do find them amusing. I definitely don't feel like. I mean, maybe sort of the tone in our voices, like being kind of flat and deep, but although I don't think I'm monotone.
I'm not monotone.
I mean, just last night I was doing my my whistle tone register.
Well, you sound like a pterodactyl when you're doing that.
I would do it now, but I don't want to blow out the speakers.
And you know, besides being white and bald, I don't know.
They are funny,
sure, but
I definitely don't relate. I don't think that I say things like they say,
but theirs isn't. That's an act. Also, they're performing. I'm just talking.
But it's not a compliment because I do think they're funny. But you know, their whole shtick is they're mean, and I don't consider myself to be a bitchy gay man.
I don't consider myself mean either, but you tell me I am all the time. So
well, you're mean to me, but I don't. I don't think you're a nice person, but I don't think.
Well, see, okay,
but I don't think that you. I mean, you do come across in video like not the sweetest person, but like it's not a shtick.
Right.
Like I think that's just you.
Well, right.
These people are putting on a thing, but it's funny.
Well,
anyway, I got sidetracked because of the Razzies. Anyway, I'm gonna list out. I'm gonna try to do this quickly.
Oh, okay.
So I'll start with the positive. They have something called the Razzie Redeemer Award, and this was awarded to Fran Drescher for her brilliant shepherding of the Actors Guild through a prolonged 2023 strike. So congratulations, girl. Worst screenplay, the nominees were Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, The Exorcist Believer, Expendables, the fourth installment, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Which one do you think won?
I think you did tell me didn't Winnie the Pooh win?
Yeah. So we did have an interest in watching this, but there were no press screenings, obviously.
There were no screenings, and I think it was only in theaters, one night only or some shit from what I recall.
It was a one night only situation in LA, so that's kind of crazy. From what I recall, and then I remember we missed it. Like it just sort of flew by. We didn't think
kind of like that Tommy Wiseau shark film.
Because we bought tickets
to that, yeah.
And then didn't show up. Sorry, girl. Okay. Worst remake, ripoff, or sequel. The nominees were Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, The Exorcist Believer, Expendables, the fourth installment, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
I mean, you know, that's a great category because there's a lot to pick from.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey won.
I mean, okay.
Okay, they have worst screen combo.
Yeah.
The nominees were Pooh and Piglet from Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Any two of the merciless mercenaries in Expendables, the fourth installment. Any two money-grubbing investors who donated to the $400 million for remake rights to The Exorcist, The Exorcist Believer.
Oh, God.
Ana de Armas and Chris Evans in Ghosted. And Salma Hayek and Channing Tatum in Magic Mike's Last Dance.
I didn't hate that. That was... I don't think they worked as a couple, but Jesus.
Of course, Pooh and Piglet won. For Worst Supporting Actress, the nominees were Megan Fox for Expendables, Kim Cattrall in About My Father, Bai Ling in Johnny and Clyde, Lucy Liu in Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and Mary Stuart Masterson for Five Nights at Freddy's. Who do you think?
Really?
Yeah. You saw Five Nights at Freddy's.
She's just playing a bitchy old white lady. Like, okay.
Well, maybe they gave her that nom because it's not much of a stretch. I don't
Uh,
know. Anyway, who do you think won?
I don't know.
Megan Fox.
And I have not seen the Expendables 4.
No. Worst supporting actor: Sylvester Stallone in The Expendables, Michael Douglas in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Mel Gibson in Confidential Informant, Bill Murray in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and Franco Nero for The Pope's Exorcist.
Oh, God.
Good old Sly one for Expendables.
Yeah, he needs to stop making those.
Although I did think Michael Douglas and Ant-Man looked kind of like maybe like he could have been computer generated.
Well, they de-aged him.
There was no life in that game. God, worst actress: Megan Fox, Johnny and Clyde; Anna de Armas, Ghosted; Salma Hayek, Magic Mike's Last Dance; Jennifer Lopez, The Mother; Helen Mirren, Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
You got 3 Latinas in there.
Yeah. Megan Fox won for Johnny and Clyde.
So she's a double Razzie
She's
winner.
a double. She won twice last night.
I haven't seen that.
Worst actor, which relates to our secret film: Jon Voight in Mercy, Russell Crowe, The Pope's Exorcist, Vin Diesel, Fast X, Chris Evans, Ghosted, and Jason Statham, Meg 2, The Trench.
Meg. Hey, Meg.
Hey, Meg. Jon Voight won for Mercy.
Oh, I don't. That must be a faith-based film.
Oh, yeah, I don't recall that being a thing. Okay, worst director: Reese Frake Waterfield for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, David Gordon Green, The Exorcist Believer, Peyton Reed, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Scott Whoa for The Expendables, and Ben Wheatley, Meg 2, The Trench. Of course, Reese Frake Waterfield got it for Winnie the Pooh. And then the big award was Worst Picture. This shouldn't be hard to guess. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, The Exorcist Believer, Expendables, the fourth installment, Meg 2, The Trench, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods. And Winnie the Pooh won. So Winnie the Pooh swept the award.
They swept. They cleaned up well, I guess. So I don't know that I want to watch that, but I guess eventually.
You know, we made a list of our least favorite films of 2023, and none of these films were on it. But I suspect we watch. Well, you specifically watch a lot more movies. Well, no, it really is me because we're limited by what I've seen. I feel like I've seen a lot more movies than the people who decide these things.
Well, we didn't see a couple of these, so
we didn't. But like, you know,
I mean, Jennifer Lopez is the mother.
Well, I don't disagree. You know, some of these are easy. Like Vin Diesel is a forever in any of the Fast and Furious.
He's just
movies.
Not going to be good.
No, so it's like boring.
You
saw Ghosted.
Yeah, I reviewed that for our site.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good, but I've seen infinitely worse films this year.
But I don't think that these aren't. Well, Magic Mike's Last Dance, I'm kind of surprised that this film got like 3 nominations.
People did not like that film.
Yeah.
But it's not the worst. Like, come on.
I did think Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was.
I think that deserves the pot shot, but I don't. Again, I've seen.
It's not the worst. Yeah.
There were things that I didn't mind about it.
Anyway, we can move on.
Mercy with Jon Voight co-stars Jonathan Rhys Meyers, and it's about a doctor and former military officer finding herself in a deadly battle for survival when the Irish mob takes control of the hospital where she works and her son is taken hostage. I bet Jon Voight's putting on a real hammy Irish accent.
I would, now knowing he won for worst actor, I'm interested.
Oscar winner Jon Voight, this year's Razzie winner.
If someone wants to pay us on Patreon to review that, I would. But anyway, moving on.
Soliciting.
Yeah. We received messages about the Queer Eye drama.
Jonathan, what's that motherfucker's name? I always thought that fake shit seemed fake.
Well, that's actually what I was going to say. So I've watched many episodes of the reboot, like from seasons 1 through 3. I think I skimmed 4, and I haven't even tried the latest. But I'm very familiar with these 5. It makes for good TV. Like I'd be lying if I tried to, like I'm not going to pretend that I didn't get teary-eyed, but it's never because of the Fab 5, it's because of the people. And
The Fab
but
Five. God, I hate
but
that.
it just like it makes for great TV, but it's all so fake. I mean, people, it takes more than like a makeover and some new furniture
And
and
a
3 days with a group of homosexuals to
and a
become a new
and a
person.
sad talk about your shitty life.
And like some bruschetta, like
Like,
that Anthony thing,
th-
Anthony.
I can teach you how to make bruschetta. Girl, I don't need to know how to make that.
But they all seem, I don't care for any of them except Bobby, and Bobby's the one who got fired, although he claims he didn't get fired.
Well,
But
his skills also seem the most
right,
practical for what we're
so the
doing.
one I actually thought seemed the most reasonable is no longer with the cast. But there's drama from two ends. One is Bobby leaving, and then Tan, the style person who I can't stand, and his stupid French tuck. But
That does not work on everyone.
no,
All of these motherfuckers just use a formula like rinse, wash, and repeat, and we all cry and have a gay old time. No.
but the new in like interior designer person, I guess, is a friend of Tan's, and then I guess people are saying that Tan got Bobby fired to get his friend on, but then Tan made a video saying that lots of people applied and he didn't have any pull, and he didn't even know that his friend was going to get hired. And
Who's that crackhead comedian that I like? The white guy. He
crackhead,
does Big Mouth. John, is that his name?
uh, Nick Kroll.
No, the one that does the other boy in Big Mouth.
Oh, Jason Mantzoukas,
No, the other boy.
the crackhead.
Yeah, he just went to rehab for coke again.
Mulaney.
John Mulaney. There you
Oh
go. That
God.
you made me watch some
Oh, that's
video with
right.
what
Of
tan
Tan. Ugh,
dressed John
that
Mulaney.
was
It's
so
like,
cringy.
and then you made me watch him do what fucking who's that dum dum that dated Kim Kardashian? Pete Davidson. Uh, talking about and he had the gall to talk about how his BDE like. Ugh. And what else did you make me watch that was Oh, you made me watch some Jonathan Van Ness interview, and the interviewer was gagging over him, and then some fan came by to get an autograph, and Jonathan was like, "Not right now." It was very Joan Crawford.
Well, and then Jonathan Van Ness, the drama is that like people from the production are saying that he's super difficult, and it's like, well, I
Y-
mean,
l-
Stevie Wonder could see that he would be a problem. Like, I mean,
You
he,
can tell,
ugh.
yes.
But like people are saying, like production people have been quoted as saying that like he always wanted to be the center of attention to the point where he would refuse to film with other people because he wanted to be the only person in the scene. And
That's very Joan Crawford. That's like those old Hollywood women, like in Grand Hotel. Greta Garbo and Joan Crawford could not be in the same frame.
ugh, I just can't. Something about him, them, I don't know his pronouns, their pronouns, but something about JVN drives me crazy. And I think his products are not great because I did order them all to test them. And I don't know. I just think that he, ugh.
See, this is
And
the
then like I have old coworkers, one in particular who he used to do her hair, and I feel like the way a lot of women react to him is baffling to me. I just don't know what the appeal is, and I don't know.
Well, there's none to me. But anytime that this is why I don't mind coming across as maybe not being the friendliest, is because that shit is 24/7. That shit's fake. Like,
Well, yeah, because then you seem like mentally ill. Like,
yes, like you don't just be real. Can we just be? Isn't this reality
and then
television
also
anyway?
listening to Jonathan Van Ness cry about like his HIV status and like struggling to fit in, and then it's also like, but he comes from like he has like a privileged background, and I don't know. He just seems like a mess to me. But all of this to say, I don't give a shit about this show, these people.
Same.
But I hope Bobby Burke's doing well. Um, so I was listening to a podcast, and then it brought something to my attention that I didn't realize. But last year in 2023, Idris Elba checked himself into rehab for being a workaholic. And at first, like that headline, you want to giggle, and the people on the podcast are making fun of him. But then I was reading more about what he said about it. And it kind of really made sense to me that he chose to check in because it was affecting his personal life and his relationship, because he works a lot. He started a marketing business. He's obviously an actor, a DJ. He's working on a lot of stuff, production stuff. And he would find himself like being gone for 10 days for a movie shoot. And then as soon as he had free time, he would go work on another project. And meanwhile, like his family, his home life are lacking. And so it seems obvious, but I think when you're in the middle of it, it's really easy to lose track of reality. But some things he said that I'm not going to go on for long about it, except that he was saying what he learned going into rehab, which is really like, headlines make things seem so crazy, but rehab is in like taking time to discuss issues and work with a therapist in a group setting, but mainly trying to understand why people delve into their work in the way they do and keep themselves overly busy. And there are many reasons why, right? Like you feel like it's your only chance to succeed, or that if you say no to something, you won't get another opportunity. Or maybe it's because you don't want to go home, right? Because you don't want to be around your significant other or your children. Maybe you are greedy about money. Maybe, you're trying to mask or draw attention away from other vices you might have. So I just brought it up because I think listening to the people talk about it, they were kind of making fun of it. But I think a lot of people get caught in this trap of, because workaholic sounds like, well, why would I sit at Chipotle and do double hours? But it's not just, it's just the idea of like,
it's a state of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it also made me think that knowing a lot of people who doing a lot of things and keeping yourself busy isn't necessarily productive. So I think a lot of people just do a lot of shit and it doesn't amount to anything. And then you walk around frazzled, like you're so stressed out. And it's like, well, that's, that's kind of your fault, because all this shit you do doesn't amount to anything. But yeah. Anyway, the biggest takeaway from that was, taking time to think, why am I doing this? Like why am I keeping myself so busy? I wanted to share a story that happened yesterday that I was waiting to tell you today. So I went to a store to buy a tank top that I like. And so I had to park on the street. And so I parked up at a meter. So as my car's parking, I see someone who we both have met before, like once, but like a very long time ago, riding a bike, like a city bike, the kind that you can rent per the hour or whatever. And then, so he's riding his bike and I noticed the person on the bike. I didn't recognize them. I just saw them. And then my car was parallel parking. And then I see one of those robot delivery things coming towards him. And I'm watching him like ride and the robot ride or go. And that robot runs right into him like hard. And I witnessed it with my own eyes. And then you could also hear it. It was loud. That robot hit that bike so hard. And then he was riding fast enough that the robot got stuck in the bike and bent the back wheel. And he flew off the bike. So then my car parked and I got out and I'm at the meter.
This person's where? On the ground?
Yes.
Okay. Bleeding?
Well, I didn't see him bleeding, but then I see him and I'm like, oh my God, I recognize him. I'm just standing there looking at him. And then he looked at me and recognized me. And then and I'm like, are you okay? And he said, yeah. But he was like flustered and embarrassed and then just wanted to leave. So then he did. He just said hi and walked away. But he left the bike there. So he left the bike attached to the robot with this bent wheel. Because it's not his bike,
But then there's a futuristic country song in there.
Yeah. Maybe it's mean-spirited to tell the story. But then it made me think, a couple of weeks ago, I think while you were out of town maybe, there was one of those robot delivery things in front of our house.
Esther.
And
because all of these things are named.
Which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But like that's the best part, of seeing what the name of the robot is. But this one, like the part of the sidewalk it was trying to navigate was cracked and had like a big hill on it. And so it tried to go and it stopped and it was trying to figure it out. And I'm assuming that whenever the robot's having difficulty, there's like a human somewhere that can see what's going on and override it.
Well, you would think.
You would think. But anyway, the robot decided to like try to like get some speed and go over the bump, and then it flipped.
Mhm.
So this poor robot was like on its side, unable to move, like a turtle on its back. So I did flip the robot to get it back on its wheels. So I felt good about that. Anyway,
Doing your part, huh?
oh, speaking of doing, someone sent me a screenshot of a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, that basically said that the water of life, sandworm piss in
Mhm.
Dune 2, is made from UV blue vodka, which I don't know if that's true or not. But the funny part of the post that made me laugh for quite a while was that someone commented below it, "Oh, that explains why Timothée wanted two bitches after he drank that." And that's so stupid, but it made me laugh. Okay, moving on to the restaurant section. I wanted to say I've noticed that McDonald's now is asking if you want to round up for charity, like round up your
Oh
change.
yeah, a lot of places do that.
But those high ass prices, like you're already overcharging me for this plastic food, and then you want me to give you my extra 32 cents? The answer is no.
For charity,
It's just like the grocery store when they want you to like donate money to give food, and it's like you, you
as I had to navigate a cluster of the unhoused, probably to get into the doors of your establishment, do I want to round up for charity?
on all the food they throw away, pack that shit up and give it
Right.
to people. Don't ask me these high ass prices. Then, speaking of drive-throughs, you don't ever really. I mean, I'm assuming rarely or ever in a fast food drive-through, but the
Only with you.
but the I hate when I'm going to use Apple Pay, because
Mhm.
usually they have the machine on like a stick that they put, like jam in your face so you can tap your phone.
Mhm.
But I've noticed recently that these fools will just be like, "Oh, give me your phone so I
Yeah,
can
I don't
tap
like
it."
that. Mm-mm.
No, you cannot. Because first of all, like your little grubby hands, my hands are dirty enough all over my phone. I don't need some stranger. But then what if you drop my phone?
Well, there's that, which you know has happened.
Right.
Bust up my
Who's gonna pay
screen.
for it? Who's gonna pay for my phone when you drop it in between my car and the building
Mm.
as I hand it to you? I just think that's so weird. Also, like at Kaiser, uh, sometimes when you show your
Yes, your Kaiser card.
card, and then the person will like grab your phone to type. No,
Mhm.
like if you can't see, then maybe you shouldn't be working at the check-in desk at the. I don't like that. Don't.
Disability retirement, I can't see.
Yeah, don't grab my phone. Or when I went to get my car serviced, and they need your insurance information when they um, give you the loaner car. It's so of course our insurance. I have it on my phone on the app. And yeah, the lady like the last three times, like she grabbed my phone, to, like it. Like, is it me or is that weird? Like,
I think it's weird, but I mean, I'm also of the school of like, I need to get this shit done right now, and I need to keep it moving. So this person that is touching on my stuff, like, let's keep going, because you could stop at that moment and make a scene, but
this is
uh,
why I keep sanitary wipes in my car.
well, there's that is the alternative option. Mhm.
Okay, there is something in the sorry to this man section in our review for Damsel, the new Millie Bobby Brown
Yeah.
movie. I had said that at a point she cuts all of her hair off into a bob and that we don't see it, but that's not true. We do see her braid her hair up and then she chops it off.
I said that we see her braiding, but it's not clear.
I mean, it is obvious that like she cut her hair, like you see her chop it and then
Yes,
she
but
holds it, but like I was wrong that we.
it's styled into a sensible bob. It doesn't. It's
Well, sure, but I mean, again, there's no need to make excuses for making a mistake. I said that we don't see her cut her hair.
oh,
That's not true. We do see it. I think what I was reacting to is that she has this perfectly cut bob, and it's like how and why in this moment. Also related to like her getting all glammed up. It just
mhm.
all felt crazy. But moving on to films released we didn't cover. Ricky Stenicki.
Another Peter Farrelly film with Zac Efron and John Cena.
I mean, I just from the the little trailer I watched, I didn't even finish it. I thought it looked stupid. That
Yeah.
being said, probably while I'm working tomorrow, I'll put it on in the background. Kung Fu Panda 4.
Well, I haven't seen 1, 2, or 3, but there's another Kung Fu Panda cartoon.
Yeah, I wouldn't watch
I
that.
know.
5 pounds of pressure.
I was kind of surprised that you passed on this, but I'm not familiar with the director Phil Loco, but it's got Luke Evans and Rory Culkin and Alex Pettyfer.
Oh, yeah. I guess I didn't realize.
Yeah,
American Dreamer.
Shirley MacLaine is getting old.
Damn.
She is, but this technically I think played somewhere in 2022, and it just got a release with Peter Dinklage, directed by Phil Dector. It looks very much like some slight indie film, but I mean, again, if you're a Shirley MacLaine fan,
Lastly, Glitter and Doom.
this you also passed on, but it's a queer love story directed by Tom Gustafson. It's described as an electric queer musical about
Oh,
two artists, I believe, that fall in love at first sight, and the narrative is set to the music of the Indigo Girls.
I don't think I realized what it was,
Oh
but
well, that
there wasn't. I mean, time is limited, and I don't want to
uh-huh.
overwork myself.
Oh well, yeah, of course. We don't want to be
Um,
Idris Elba.
just as a reminder, on Patreon this past week, we reviewed 3 films: Purple Rain, Sunset Boulevard, and Once Were Warriors. So
Mm-hmm.
people can check those out. Projects of interest: Switzerland.
Anton Corbijn is making another film, apparently a thriller, much like A Most Wanted Man. I think his Joy Division film is still the best thing he's done, but he's got Helen Mirren tapped to lead his latest project, so that's exciting to me.
Oh, unfortunately, there is an entry in the obituary section. Jaclyn Jose died. For people who don't know, she's a Filipino actress. According to Wikipedia, she's known for her penetrating eyes and antagonistic roles in film and soap opera. But I brought her up because she is the first Filipino to win the Cannes Film Festival Award for Best Actress. She is the first and only Filipino to win this award for the movie Ma Rosa in
Yep,
2016.
which I have seen. Yeah,
And she was young. She was only 60. She died of a heart attack.
that's
So
actually a very controversial win.
why?
Because she won over Sonia Braga for Aquarius, Isabelle Huppert for Elle, and Sandra Hüller for Tony Erdmann.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think Ma Rosa is a very good film.
Oh, wow.
But
I
yes, I actually we own.
Drag this lady from the grave. Okay.
Sorry, girl, but I've had so many conversations about that particular win.
Dang.
But I own it if you ever want to watch it.
Maybe. Let's take a break. The secret film this week was your choice, and you chose the 1969 American drama film Midnight Cowboy, directed by known homosexual John Schlesinger.
Yep, who's from he's British. He's a cornerstone of the British New Wave and spent the 60s kind of shaping the career of Julie Christie, who starred in his Billy Liar, and then she won an Oscar for Best Actress for Darling. And she was also in the film he did right before this, Far from the Madding Crowd, a Thomas Hardy adaptation. Sam Smith, who won whatever Sam Smith won his Oscar for. Do you remember him?
Yeah, he said he was the first gay person to win an Oscar.
Yeah, no, Sam. No.
John Schlesinger was out in these streets.
But again, and technically not the first queer to win, but the first out director, I believe, to win that award. But yeah, I've seen this film before. You hadn't.
So we took a break from doing live YouTube videos because I'm overworked. But we were back a couple weeks ago, and the poll for the live was best picture winners I had not seen.
Mm-hmm.
And Midnight Cowboy came in number 2.
Mm-hmm.
The film we reviewed was American Beauty. But I'm assuming you chose this film because of that poll.
Yeah, and I've been wanting to rewatch this for a while. I don't know if because I don't think you remember when we were living in Minnesota together. One Halloween, I dressed up as Joe Buck, this character, which of course nobody knew the reference to. But
so I had never seen this movie, didn't know what it was about. There is a song that for the last like 12 hours I've been racking my brain trying to remember the song, but I believe it's like an R&B hip hop song that has like a rap break, and someone in the lyrics mentions Midnight Cowboy. So that's the only reference I had to this movie. So after watching it last night, I was very surprised at what this movie was about. So the basic premise: a naive hustler travels from Texas to New York City to seek personal fortune, finding a new friend in the process. This movie, I think it's excellent.
I do too.
And it's doing a lot, but it was very effective. It has a sad ending.
Well, the whole thing is sad to
I
me,
mean,
but
it is, but this shit is wild.
except for the very catchy Nilsson song that is the theme. Everybody's talking, which I actually love, and I don't know if it's a nostalgic factor because I saw this film as a kid because I asked my grandma to buy me movies all the time, and I asked her for this, and she bought me this movie.
Well, this movie, before I tell the story, originally was rated X.
Yes, the newly created rating system after the fall of the production code. Uh, and I think that's part of why this got, we were very afraid of sexuality and still are in the US. So there's a story behind it that it's less salacious than the movie. That's more salacious than the movie is.
I don't, yeah. So then the rating was changed to R. And it definitely is not deserving of an X rating. But the story, so it's set in the late 60s, and John Voight plays a guy named John. Oh, see, that reckless driving just distracted me. John Voight plays a character named Joe, and
Mm-hmm.
Joe lives in like rural Texas, and we see that he wants to move to New York City, and his plan is that he's going to have rich women take care of him. He looks like a cowboy, but he says, "I'm not a real cowboy. I'm just a stud," basically.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of flashbacks in the film that paint a picture of him as someone who was overly coddled by his grandmother and told that he was the most handsome, smartest boy. So that probably informed his feeling that maybe like older women would want to take care of him.
Well, his self-worth is probably built into that. Yeah.
Yes, which we can talk more about. We also see that he had a girlfriend.
Played by Jennifer Salt from the film Sisters. She also has written a lot of stuff with Ryan Murphy.
And we can talk more about her too, but we get a sense that she really loved him and thought that he was different from all the other guys. Wink, wink.
Crazy Annie. Mm-hmm.
And we see that she and he are both sexually assaulted one night
by a gang of cowboys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he gets to.
And she gets locked up, I believe.
I don't recall that actually.
We see her getting taken away.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I assumed that was like for medical attention because she was assaulted. But
no, I think it's because she couldn't cope with what happened.
Oh, so Joe ends up in New York City. Naive is a word to describe him. I would also say he seems kind of dumb.
He's dumb. These two are like George and Lenny, and he's Lenny.
So Joe ends up in New York City with a little bit of money in his pocket, and he tries to meet ladies, but it doesn't work. He ends up actually his first sort of what he thinks is a trick ends up being a situation where he has to pay the lady
because I think she's a hooker.
Probably, yeah.
Sylvia Miles, who was also Oscar nominated for this, and you know her best as the mother of Meryl Streep in She-Devil.
So Joe is sort of dejected, sitting in a bar, and he meets Dustin Hoffman, a character who they're calling Ratso, although he wants to be called Rico, not Ratso.
Mm-hmm. Or Rizzo.
But Ratso is a bit of a hustler himself. Ratso also describes himself as being crippled. It looks like he maybe is suffering the effects of like polio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a limp.
And some bad teeth and a persistent cough. But Ratso hustles Joe because Joe talks too much. He's like, "Oh yeah, basically I'm here to be a gigolo." And Ratso's like, "Oh, well, you need management and I know the person." And we can describe the scene where he meets his, prospective pimp, but it doesn't work out. And Ratso takes money from Joe. So now Joe is down and out. He gets kicked out of the hotel he can't afford. But he finds Ratso and confronts him and says, "Give me my money back. I don't have your money, but you can come stay with me." And Ratso lives in a condemned, like, hovel. So not good conditions. And bulk of the movie is these two just trying to hustle, and I mean, you would think they would get better over time, but they just get worse.
Nope.
But everything culminates in Joe getting invited to one of those like Andy Warhol underground parties, like type parties.
With several of Warhol's actual factory girls in there, yeah.
Yeah. And a woman takes a liking to Joe, played by
Brenda Vaccaro,
and
who you know from Supergirl.
that's right. And Ratso orchestrates a deal. So finally he does something because the woman wants to sleep with Joe. But we also see that Ratso's health is declining. And it's during this last scene at this party where Joe goes home with the lady and Ratso
actually gets paid for his work.
Wow, his subpar work because he has performance issues, which we can talk about. But we also see that Ratso falls down the stairs. So he's getting more sick. Like he looks like he has like bad COVID. I don't know. And then he falls, so of course hurts himself. Joe turns the trick, gets his money. Joe buys like some medicine and some socks for Ratso. So when he sees him the next day, Ratso looks really sick. And he's like, dude, I can't walk. And you know what they do to people like me who can't walk? They're going to like put me away. So you have to get me down to Florida. And throughout the film, Ratso have been talking about Miami, and we get a lot of fantasy sequences
from both of them.
And for Ratso, his fantasy sequence is he's in sunny Miami, like South Beach, not crippled, and like ladies are fawning over him. So Joe decides to take him, but they need money. So Joe goes out trying to turn a trick and finds this man. And it's not the first time Joe turns a trick with a man. But the guy ends up saying, I can't go through with it. Sorry. Which I think was part of the guy's fantasy. But Joe says, well, I'm not leaving until you give me money.
I need $57.
And I need $57. So Joe ends up brutally assaulting this man to get the money. And then the next thing we see is the two of them on a bus heading down to Florida. And guess what happens, y'all? Poor Ratso dies on the bus. I was not ready for that. Well, I had said earlier on the film, like, he looks like he's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm just trying to be quiet, like this.
But when he's on the bus looking real rough, and then you see him just like sitting there limp, it really did rip my heart out.
Sad. And then Jon Voight tenderly kind of taking him in his arms is.
But that's the end of the film.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
It's a great film.
It's excellent. There are some weaknesses we can talk about at the end, but yeah, this.
See, I don't mind that. I don't mind that so much. It's just, and there's some kind of hope to, at least for Joe, who's decided that he's not good at hustling, throws away his cowboy outfit clothes, and will probably be reinventing himself in Florida. But to me, the twin fantasy sequences are like both these men, because this is a love story about that's a friendship love story to me. But
sure,
this notion of we all fantasize about this grass is always greener shit, and it's like, well, no, I mean, these places are concrete jungles.
Well, before I get into my notes, I think this relates to the Idris Elba topic, because Joe, while Ratso is still alive on the bus, he says, like, I think when we get down to Miami, like you already said, hustling is probably, I'm not good at it, so maybe I'll get a job. And it's like, yeah, girl. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because at one point we see him walk by a restaurant, and I thought it was a very interesting scene, because the opening of the film, we see that Joe worked at a restaurant. And so he walks by a restaurant in New York, and there's a sign that says they need help, like for a dishwasher. And then he's looking in the restaurant, and there's a guy, I think maybe like a cook,
mm-hmm.
and they exchange glances. And I thought, like, is he looking because he's interested in the job, but then he's like, I don't want to do, like, I didn't leave Texas to come to New York to do the same shit I was doing. But then I thought, or is he looking at the guy?
Well, that's how I think the film's kind of brilliant in its ambiguity.
And I think and I would agree that I think it's the film feels limited maybe by the time and what was acceptable. So they had, I mean, I don't even think a lot of stuff is coded. It's just vague or not even there. But I think there are moments like that scene where it's like, wow, for probably for what the director felt they could get away with. That was a
I
really
mean, this film was clearly pushing the boundaries, getting slapped with, the X rating at the time. But, even John Wayne, who won Best Actor this year over these two, John Boyd and Dustin Hoffman, who they reference. There's a line with the word fag and John Wayne in the same line. I'm sure he loved, but John Wayne had very nasty things to say about this film.
well. Let's continue with that theme because there could be a drinking game every time someone says faggot.
Well, especially Ratso, who seems, it's very the lady doth protest too much. Like, girl, come on now.
Then okay, so
Oh, and so in the insert essay on the Criterion, the points out this is one of the first films where a queer person is called the F slur and kind of just rolls with it, like, okay, and
oh
in the early
oh
scene,
that's right.
yeah,
Well, we'll get to that. Okay, so Joe, while he's still back in Texas, we see that he goes to the restaurant he works in to say goodbye, like, and to quit. Like he
mhm,
doesn't give notice, and they need help that day.
they do.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm not here to work. Like I'm telling y'all, I'm heading out east." And there's this black man who works in the kitchen who Joe seems to be fond of, and the way that black man's looking at him, like, the fuck do I care?
That scene
I need someone to help me wash these dishes.
that scene reminds me of that Iggy Azalea song, "I'm the Strip Club,"
Oh, why?
when she's like, "Don't want," when she's talking about like, "I'm not coming today. I'm just send me my check."
Oh, yeah. Well,
Like,
that's what he says. I just can't get my check. But he's trying to tell the black man, like, oh, well, I'm going to go out there to find a rich lady to take care of me. These women are desperate because all the men out there are tutti fruities.
mm-hmm.
Like, girl, I think you're talking about yourself.
Well, yeah, you're gonna be. What do you think you're gonna be doing?
I also thought it was funny that I believe that the restaurant he works in, they have a sign out front, like a big sign that says that they have the world's largest hot dogs. For some reason, that sent me. Okay, no one can tell me that John Voight in this movie doesn't look like Amanda Bynes. And
You
that's all I saw the
you
entire
kept
movie.
saying that. I see his daughter in his like she has his face structure and those
You said
lips.
his daughter like it's not Angelina Jolie.
Hmm. Well, they don't talk, I
That's like
guess.
when Bobby Brown would want, like when
Or,
people would talk about Whitney, he's like refer to her as my wife. Like,
or Latoya
what?
talking about her sister.
Yeah. Like you talk about Janet Jackson.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Amanda Bynes and John Voight to me look the same in
So
this movie.
when I was probably 13 when I saw this, and I remember thinking Midnight. John Boyd was very handsome,
Mm,
and he has a certain
he is. I mean, he's well, he's young and
all-American wide-faced look, but
yeah, I mean, kind of boyish, but then
yeah, I think I didn't feel the same way for him this time. But yeah, he seems like a lost little boy.
yes, I agree. So, I mean, immediately when he's talking to the guy in the restaurant, I knew he was kind of a dummy. But then when
Yeah.
he's on the bus, there's this lady who's like, "Oh, can I get a stick of gum for my kid because she gets car sick?" And then Joe says, "Oh, I only get car sick on boats." Like, oh, so he is dumb.
Yeah.
And then he keeps talking, and the lady, but he's being loud, and the lady has to tell him to quiet down. Okay,
But it immediately establishes this hunger for connection because he
yeah,
falls asleep and wakes up, and we get a shot of him looking at the empty seats, like, oh, these people that I'd already established a connection with are
they're
gone,
gone. Yeah.
and yeah,
The my overwhelming thought thinking about the character of Joe is this is why people shouldn't make little kids think they are the smartest, the prettiest, you're a little princess, you're a king. And
hmm
because then I feel like there are a lot of people running around thinking that they deserve something that just like you're not giving the thing that you want.
well, and that's
Like
but again, this is I think treating straight white men a certain way, and then out in the real world they throw temper tantrums when those things aren't
sure, sure.
obtainable.
But I mean everybody. I mean, you get these like I mean, I know ladies who act like they're a prize and
I think
and
it's
it's like, whoa.
I think it's worthwhile for everyone to experience both sides of any coin, so you can
Well,
temper
yes.
your reactions. Yeah.
But or also like the idea of like having to work. Like
Hmm.
maybe I'm just old school, but I really do believe in like the pride of making an honest living and like not thinking you're too good. I've
Well,
talked about this so many times, but nothing drives me more crazy. And this is why I don't like a lot of gangster movies like Goodfellas, because I hate witnessing this attitude of like, I'm too good to just make an honest living and that anyone who does is a chump. But then it's like, but me doing what I'm supposed to do netted me a nice life. Meanwhile, you're like on
yeah,
the struggle
but
bus.
there are consequences to those behaviors, but also the world often slaps back quite hard to those types. But and I'll, but also experiencing that you're physically in an attraction. Not every you're not everyone's type. You know, like it's. I think it's
Well,
healthy to
that's a slap in the
experience.
face, yeah, especially for Joe, because
Hmm.
he really thought that he was just going to walk onto the streets of New York and all these women were going to throw money at him.
Which is why one of the best scenes is he kind of tails this dowdy looking frump of a she looks like a housewife in her mid 40s, and his pickup line is asking how to get to the Statue of Liberty, and that lady looks at him and rolls her eyes and keeps it moving.
If Boy Please was a person,
Right?
it would have been that lady.
Yeah, she's like but he is kind of aggressive and keeps following her and just like, no, honestly, I'm looking for the Statue of Liberty, and she's like, you're being serious.
Yeah. But well, yeah. But let's talk about, so this movie was nominated for quite a few Academy Awards.
Won three.
And I think uh, the direction and the performance from Dustin Hoffman are really the highlights for me.
Sure.
I think that the way the film is constructed, I think the way all the flashback sequences are handled, I think like, so the first sex scene we have with Joe is this woman he meets that looks like she lives in like some fancy Park Avenue place.
That's Sylvia Miles.
Yeah. And while they're having sex, they're like tumbling or rolling around over the TV remote. So we get like all these different clips um, of what's on the TV.
Which I think is a fascinating way to show what's going on in
Yes,
1969.
yes. So I think that you know what it kind of reminded me of? What's the Polanski movie with the lady who's going crazy in her apartment?
Repulsion.
Repulsion. It kind of felt like Repulsion sometimes to me,
Okay.
like but like gritty New York in color, kind of
Sure. Like walking around in the streets,
very
kind of in a daze. Yeah.
very effective. There are a lot of really great shots.
First time cinematographer, by the way.
Yeah, super impressive. Dustin Hoffman is acting his little ass off. I thought he was so good.
Adam Hollander was the DOP, but yes, and he had to struggle to get this because he's kind of hot off The Graduate, which is also this is right at the beginning of the new American cinema movement when collectively I think American cinema was at its zenith for creativity and storytelling. But he had to prove that he could play this role. I guess in the novel by James Leo Herlihy, this character is supposed to be blonde and in his early 20s, but I think it's there's to me he's almost like a mirror of what Joe is going to become should he stay on this path in New York. And I also guess the screenwriter Waldo Saltz cut out the first third of the novel by thinking that it becomes most interesting when Joe gets to New York.
So, getting back to that first sex scene, did you tell me that that actress was nominated?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I thought her role was slight but strong. I mean, it is kind of memorable because she flips the script on him so hard, and then you think like, wait, I think she's a prostitute.
Yeah.
But like she knows how to work, and she not only, well, first of all, like her paying him is not an option, and then she actually hustles him out of $20,
Mm-hmm.
saying that she needs cab fare, and he gives it to her because she starts becoming hysterical. And
When he implies that he's supposed to get money, she gets
yeah,
upset.
so actually I thought it was very well done. But so when Joe is at that bar and he meets Dustin Hoffman, I guess someone you might qualify as like trans or non-binary approaches Joe and
Ask for a cigarette.
and Joe thinks he's talking to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
But then of course, Ratso's like, oh, you got to watch out for these faggots, blah 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 blah. But then I thought that scene was very good because at a point that homosexual tries to warn Joe
Mm-hmm.
by saying like kind of saying like, oh, you're not close enough for Ratso to get his hand into your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Like you better watch out. And of course, Joe's so damn naive, he doesn't get that danger, danger. But I thought that was really well done. And then, oh my God, just every scene with Ratso,
Well, he's so pathetic.
he's so pathetic. But when they first leave that bar and walk to go to like the pimp,
To Mr. O'Daniel.
oh God, Dustin's little walk, which you said that he said
I
he
think
put.
pebbles in his shoe.
Didn't Marilyn Monroe chop off her heels, like make them
Yeah, she
uneven,
made
so
one
she have
uneven
her
to
little
walk.
saunter?
Mhm.
I thought, yeah, he's really good. Oh God, then the scene with the pimp was so creepy. I can just, you
Well, he's
know,
not really a pimp.
no, he's not, but it just made me think like I've sometimes like I just think like it's a miracle that I'm where I am today because of all the crazy things I got myself into and
Mhm.
somehow came out unscathed.
Yeah, all the kind of places you can end up in a city that are like,
Oh
oh,
God, all
okay.
the things that I did and places I ended up and trips I took that it's like I didn't know what I was doing and
Hmm.
like and I thought I was safe being here and I don't know what saved me really. Well, I mean, I think I kind of do. Is I think I was naive, but I also had super low self-esteem. So I never trusted anyone. Like
Hmm.
anyone
Which
who
is good.
wanted my attention. Like if someone told me like, "Hey, handsome," blah, I'm like, "Oh, no, you're crazy." Even to this day, of
Well,
like,
there's a different problem with your
I
reaction to that,
know, but it's like,
but
oh, if you think I'm attractive, there's something wrong with you, so then I'm gonna beat it. And so,
mhm.
obviously, like you said, there are other issues around that. But I
Yeah,
think when I was younger,
but you were that actually ended up probably serving you well in some
I
scenarios.
think it saved my life
Hmm.
because I didn't do a lot of stuff, and yeah,
Well, see, I have done a lot of stuff, but I also had low self esteem, so it was more like I'll take your attention, but I'm gonna run away screaming
yeah, we
because
were the
this feels not,
opposite.
this feels not right.
Yeah,
But speaking of being naive, I think the first trip to New York I booked on my own. It was to see Sigourney Weaver in an off-Broadway play. And again, that my saving grace is that I've done stupid naive things, but it will be the only time I do it. I learn. But I don't know. I was poor and I booked a ticket through Newark and then was stuck in Newark. Not
like how do
realizing,
I get to
not
where
really
I'm
like, wait,
trying to
wait, I'm
go?
not flying into LaGuardia.
Well, so to be fair, the first time I went to New York, I also did the same thing, but at that time I had money, so because it was when I was working in a casino. So then I remember paying for a limousine to take me to where I
Oh
wanted.
yeah, that I had no. I worked full time since I was 16 through college at I worked at Sam's Club at that point, but I didn't have a lot of money, and I had like $100 cash in that taxi because I was exhausted and tired. Like I took a taxi from to Newark. Oh my god.
But yeah, so getting back to that fake pimp scene, I thought that was so creepy because it's like, what are you getting yourself into? And then that man was so creepy, and then all of a sudden he wants them. I don't even know who this person was and what Ratso thought he was going to do, but the guy is like, we have to get on our knees and pray. And so clearly, the way he's presented is like he's kind of a like I mean he's crazy.
He's very Piper Laurie in the film Carrie because he throws open his bathroom and there's like that electric Virgin Mary.
So
And
after
that's John MacGyver, who is a character actor in a ton of very notable 60s films like Breakfast at Tiffany's and Manchurian Candidate.
so at this point, Joe's been swindled out of $40, which back in 1969 is like hundreds of dollars, right? So
Hmm.
he sort of like walking the streets thinking like I need to turn a trick, and this young man approaches him who you recognized
That's Bob Balaban. You've seen him.
from what?
All those Christopher Guest
Oh,
films.
that's
Hmm.
right. Yes. So this kid, well, young man wants to hook up with Joe. So they go into a movie theater and Joe turns this trick. And then when it's time to pay, the guy's like, I don't have any money. And Joe's like, what? And then he kind of roughs him up a little bit and tries to steal his watch. And the kid is like, please, anything but my watch.
My mother would kill
She would
me.
kill me if. And then it's such a sad scene too because the kid is like I call him a kid because he looks little and young, but I'm sure he was an adult. Uh, Starts like throwing up in the bathroom
Hmm.
before the whole money talk. So I don't know if he was throwing up because he was nervous
Or
or
had
because he was grossed out of what he just did. But
or yeah. I mean, it takes a. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get used to that.
he yeah, we see that Joe's kind of a nice guy.
Well, there's a kindness in him, and but it's like you can't be a hooker with a heart of gold and be stupid. I
Yeah,
mean,
because you won't make any
you got
money.
to get that money first.
Damon Wayans had a character on In Living Color called Handyman. Do you remember that?
No.
I think Damon Wayans. So Handyman was supposed to be this crippled superhero,
Uh-huh.
and I think he sounds and walks just like Dustin Hoffman in Midnight Cowboy.
Well, doesn't he
So
kind
I
of do?
wonder if Damon. I would love to know. I tried to look up like if Damon Wayans ever talked about the inspiration for. I didn't find anything in it with a quick search, but I feel like he talks like how Ratso sounds. So
Mhm.
like maybe he was inspired by that character.
Well, isn't Blank Man kind of like the Damon Wayans movie?
Oh, I wonder if for the movie they changed the name
Maybe.
because in Living Color I swore he was called Handyman,
Hmm.
but yeah, I guess there's a movie called Blank Man where he is a disabled superhero.
I don't remember if he's disabled, but
Anyway, I'm talking about Damon Wayans on A Living
I
Color.
remember he had a way of talking
He
that
would
was.
play this character called Handyman, and the way that character walks and talks sounds to me like he was mimicking Ratso from Midnight Cowboy. Um, so getting back to the so Joe and his girlfriend, the flashbacks we get where they appear to be sexually assaulted, and then the girlfriend talking about how like we hear her say more than once in a flashback that he's not like the other guys. I think was I'd be so curious to know if in the book his sexuality is talked about more.
I'm sure it is, but I think there is enough here to suggest that uh, maybe he's not even quite sure.
I would think based off of how this young lady reacted to him, like she felt very close to him, saying he's not like the other boys. The fact that he took to having relations with another man very easily, because I feel like in any other movie a character like him who turned a trick just because he needed money afterwards would have acted out in a way, whether he was disgusted or upset or angry. But I think it's a very deliberate choice that we see that Joe doesn't react at all.
No, and I think it's a really interesting scene where we see him finally decide that he needs to go stand where the other
Male
male hustlers
hustlers.
are, and realizing that he's just kind of, he's a dime a dozen.
I also think, well, and another big clue would be when Joe at the end finally gets paid for sex with a woman. He, it would seem, struggles with erectile dysfunction at that
Hmm.
time. And then the woman even asks him, like, you know, are you gay?
And
Well,
that.
she doesn't ask him, are you gay? She says, like, this happens sometimes to people for this
Hmm.
or that, or if they're gay.
Hmm.
And then he kind of reacts. He doesn't react negatively to that, but he does all of a sudden try to perform. And then we don't see whether or not he was successful. But
But she does give him $10 in the morning,
she does.
or 20. She gets 20.
Yeah, she gives him 20. But, and then she actually helps him book another gig. So
Mhm.
then I thought, oh, well, I guess he was good enough. But
Well, the next gig that he goes to is that man.
that's right. Well, that's because, well, he goes to the gig after he meets with Ratso and realizes that he needs to get money so they can go down south.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, I I was thinking also like I don't know what condition I would need to. I just don't know. I always think like if I'm able to, I would always work. Like there's no way that I would do whatever I have to do to not have to. I couldn't stay in Ratso's place, is
Oh
what I'm
God,
saying.
no.
I don't know what. Like I just don't know what would have to happen for me to.
For long term, like they're just camped up in there. No, I mean shelter from the storm for the night, the week. Okay, but get yourself
But I
out of
think I
there.
would work anywhere. Like I would do anything I would like anything I can get my hands on that was like legit pay to show up every day and do something to get money so I don't have
So
to
I don't
do
have to
that.
deal with that. Yeah.
So that's why, I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble for commenting on people's situations, but like
Well, I mean, to
I
each
know
their
people
own.
who seem to have a hard time and it's because they don't want to go to work. Like
Yeah.
again, for some of y'all out there, you are not too good to go to work. because your current life is not, you don't have rich parents or a trust fund, or
There's nobody out there. No one's looking out for anybody, you know?
it's
So,
not cute. It like you're not like I don't think that that's pride to resist like honest work because you think you're above it or that it's not in the direction of the career you want.
well, it's like you got to make the system work for you somehow. And
So
they're,
instead, you want to ask people for money and sleep on people's couches and borrow shit from people and ask for rides. And
and so, you know, the shit is you get worn down. You just get worn down doing that.
if you don't collect a regular paycheck with more than 20 hours a week on it, do not ask me for shit. Like,
Oh
do not ask me for shit. Please. Um, but I thought a cute scene was when Joe gets mad at Ratso, like, you're supposed to be helping me and you're not doing anything. So then we get a little montage of Ratso trying to clean Joe up because he's like, well, who's gonna want to have sex with you? You stink and you look raggedy. So they go steal a hat. Ratso cuts Joe's hair. He there's a really fun scene where Ratso shines Joe's boots
Mm-hmm.
and then other people sit down,
Including a cop. Yeah.
which I thought was funny because it's like you are actively experiencing what it is like to just work for money and you still don't
Resist.
you still resist. Oh God, Dustin and his damn cough. And just like, and then every time he starts coughing, what does he do? Light up a cigarette.
Oh yeah. Well, you know,
Like,
keep that train going.
if people don't know, smoking restricts blood flow. That's why it's really bad for healing. It's also bad for erections. So I thought it was funny that Joe was having performance issues and then lights up a cigarette. Like, that's not going to help your erection. Then we see that the condemned building they're living in is being like it. I thought it was funny that they're acting like they've been evicted from a place they're squatting in. Like, okay. Oh, the line Joe likes to say is, I'm not a real cowboy, but I am one hell of, or I'm not a real cowboy, but I am one hell of a stud.
Okay, girl.
And again, I think that just plays into like the delusion.
Well, the delusion, you know, very much coming from a small town, even into Minneapolis as a kid, and thinking that queer as folk was going to be, that's what it was going to be like in the city. And it's like he comes not realizing that dressed as a cowboy in New York is a gay fetish.
Well, that part, but what I'm thinking even more is that he's not self-aware enough to realize that you're presenting yourself as a cowboy, but you are not a cowboy. So anyone who would find you appealing will be disappointed realizing that you are not this thing you're presenting.
Right.
Like, it's very basic, but I feel like it's like people don't want, like, if you were just to be yourself, like, stop telling everyone you're an actor, but then they've never seen you in anything.
Right.
Just say you work at Starbucks. You'll probably make, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, just say that you do what you do and connect that way. Right? I feel like if people get to know you better, then they might be more willing to buy into your hopes and dreams. And you can build connections. But I just feel like this character to me feels like so many people you meet living in a big city of just, and then just proud to say it. Like, so basically you're saying that you're like a fraud. Like, you're not, this thing I'm seeing is a sham. Oh, poor Dustin when he falls down the stairs.
And
he really does fall down
the stairs. Vaccaro and John Boyd are just looking, just staring at him. And he's got all that, you know, he's got all that salami in his pockets from the party.
Oh my God. There's a scene where, because there's all this free liquor and food, and of course these fools haven't been eating, and Ratso's just tearing. He eats so much, it looks like he got sick. And then he like steals all this salami, and the host of the party is like,
it's free, you don't need to steal it.
And he goes, well, if it's free, then it's not stealing.
And then she's like, you stink. She's like, you should use my shower.
Oh, so gross. Then oh God, poor Joe. When he's in bed with that lady, Brenda Vaccaro, and he can't perform, she's like, well, let's get your mind off of it. Let's play like something like Scrabble. And then that's when we realize that Joe is illiterate.
Joe's dumb. Yeah.
Which I felt so bad laughing at a scene with someone who can't spell trying to play Scrabble.
But it's the word is ironic. It's money.
Yeah,
he can't even spell money.
Well, and then I felt sad because he saw a building that's like they had gone to a building that
The lights were out. Yeah.
So then he thought money was spelled Mony. And poor
Which
thing.
reminds me of the TV miniseries The Stand, Moon.
Then Brenda Vaccaro lives in like a nice apartment, and he's getting ready the next morning while she's on the phone booking him another trick. And this fool is pouring her perfume into his cowboy boot
Oh,
to try to get the smell out, and then he dumps it into the sink. Can you imagine what that boot smelled like?
no. The relief when he tosses them in a garbage in Florida is.
I'm trying to look. What was a popular perfume in 1969? Like, what did ladies wear back then?
I don't know.
Casbah?
Rock the Casbah.
What would a rich white woman in New York wear in 1969? Casbah? I don't know.
But it's funny that the Mark Harris wrote the piece that's in the Criterion release of this film, talking about how they're cruelest to each other when they're playing house, and how there's this theme in queer or queer adjacent films of the period, like Killing of Sister George and Staircase, where that because of this charade of acting out like a familial scenario is what causes these queer characters to be extra cruel to one another.
I think this film is nearly perfect. Unfortunately, I think it is restricted by maybe like just like the time and not be, I, I applaud the filmmaker and everyone involved for pushing boundaries.
It's not a gay film,
and it's not. No, I mean, but
this was such a landmark. The fact that this won Best Picture over another buddy comedy like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, to me, is exceptional. But this opened a door, I think, because the year after this we'd have The Boys in the Band, William Friedkin, and with also a gay cowboy that is featured in that film more, I think, realistically in the milieu. But yeah, I think this is an important film.
I can't quite put my finger on it, but when the film ended, and it ends very abruptly, I did feel like there was a little something lacking, which is why I'm having a hard time saying it's a 5 out of 5. But sure. I don't blame the film. It's just unfortunately for the subject matter and the time, it would, maybe they couldn't do all the things they wanted to do.
No, but
it does feel a little chaotic. I do feel like it could have been a little longer with a little more background on, like, specifically, because I think we get a sense of what his life was like in Texas, but I could have used a little bit more. And then I think what we're missing is him trying to make it in New York City. It all just collapses very quickly. Like,
well, to me that's kind of realistic. Like,
but from one day to the next, it feels like he goes from like,
well, he had no money,
Yeah, but I mean, we don't even get a sense. Like, we could have just used another scene with him having another bad moment that led. It just seems like, because I don't know his life in Texas, I'm just assuming that, was it so bad that him living with Ratso wasn't that big of a leap, or because he doesn't look like.
Well, I think him leaving was just all about following the delusion that he couldn't face as a dishwasher who'd been raped with a crazy girlfriend.
I feel like I'm having to fill in a lot of blanks, which is the fun part of this movie. In some movies, like, you hate it, but in this one, it does work very well. But I just I just wish there were like a dash more of something to make this like a masterpiece to me. So because of that, I would give this film 4.5 out of 5. What would you give?
I give it 4.5 as well. Did we talk about the screenwriter Waldo Salt?
No, do it.
Well, he had been part of Hollywood's Blacklist, and this film was a kind of a big opportunity for him, and made and set the course for him to be kind of one of the most notable screenwriters of the 1970s, because he would go on to write Serpico. And I think the last script he wrote was Coming Home, which is what Jon Voight won his Best Actor Oscar for.
Oh.
So, yeah. And then there are there are a bunch of recognizable names in the periphery, like Emmett Walsh shows up in one scene. That party is filled with all kinds of notable faces and names. Viva and Ultraviolet. Paul Morrissey is a guest at the party. I think Marlene Clark from who you know from Ganja and Hess. I think she's somewhere in there.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. I think what's most fascinating is this portrait of New York. And you have to remember, so this came out in 1969, and it wasn't long after that when Stonewall happened. Like, so this is very much in a very interesting transitional phase. But yeah,
Well, that's all we have for Midnight Cowboy. You've been reading something.
I've read a couple. I read Dune, Messiah.
Oh yeah. You want to talk about that?
Not anticipate. I knew in the back of my head that Dune Part 2 would be really just the second half of the first book, because Dune Messiah is set years later, but I didn't realize that it wasn't well received, I guess, the sequel, and it's very slim compared to Frank Herbert's first book. I think there are 6. Uh, it kind of gets rushed and a bit lazy at the end, but I'll be curious to see what the next one brings, after some time has passed and Paul, the Chalamet character, starts to have feelings for his sister, played by
Oh,
Anya Taylor-Joy.
so there's incest in this story.
It's kind of like, if we don't marry her, because she's also bathed in the worm blood in her mother's worm bile in her mother's womb, so she's a Bene Gesserit, whatever, as a fetus. So there's all kinds of weird things, but the overall metaphor is about how the corrupting nature of power, because Paul starts to become drunk with his glory.
What's the other book you read?
Oh God, I'm a Shirley Jackson fan, and I was so delighted when I had found this copy of this little known book by her, because she's got a handful of very notable books. Of course, The Haunting of Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle, kind of being amongst The Lottery. The short story is probably the most notable, but this was called The Road Through the Wall, and it's this cute little 1970s paperback I have of it. And the ending, the back of the book oversells this for sure. I did not like this book. And Shirley Jackson seemed like she just maybe needed to get something published at this point, and just wrote this about these weird little children in this community of adults. And there's a murder of a little girl that the back of the book references. That doesn't happen till the last 10 pages. And she's listing off, it's one of those books. There's this Anthony Burgess book too that it reminded me of, where you were just saying names over and over again. Like Mrs. Ransom Jones and Mrs. Merriam, and there's no characterization. And I was so bored. It was actually kind of a struggle to get through. And right now I'm reading Group Portrait with Lady, which is written by Heinrich Boll, who is the second German writer to win the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature after Thomas Mann. I've had this for years, and I've always wanted to. There's a film version directed by Alexander Petrovic, starring Romy Schneider, but the book is very fascinating. I'm only 50 pages in, so I'll be excited to talk about that more later. And Heinrich Boll is probably best known for The Lost Honor of Katharina Blum, because that was made into a very notable new German wave film directed by Volker Schlondorf and Margaret von Trotta.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
All right. Oh,
yes.
I totally forgot today.
It's the Oscars.
The
today.
Oscars.
Oh yeah, that was kind of the for picking another Best Picture Oscar winner, but I don't believe we'll be watching.
I have no interest in watching the Oscars. One year we went somewhere to watch them.
Last
that
year.
Was okay.
That was last year.
Was it?
Well, 2 years. We went to Precinct one year, the year of the slap.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, the last 2 years we went somewhere. It was okay. It just is long, and then long. I don't care about the. Yeah, I mean,
I've grown weary of talking about the films that are in contention. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also a lot of people don't like. People get like, including my own mother, it gets excited. Like she wants to watch them today, but she hasn't seen these movies.
Well, yeah, my parents.
She just wants to look at like all the pretty people, which is fine.
Well, that's the point of it, I guess.
But watching, and then people are so obnoxious with their feelings about winners, and
yeah,
I don't always enjoy talking about movies with people who talk about movies.
Well, I have no control over anything that's happening, so it's like, well, I'm just gonna watch something I want to watch.
Okay, we need to wrap this up. Ta-ta. Huh.